Hi friends, hello, happy Thursday. We made it to Thursday. Anybody else feel like that? We made it to Thursday. Okay friends, today it's been a big week. Had a release with Gina K this week, my brand new stamp set called Smile Today, and we're going to be using that today to do a little bit of watercoloring and make a card. So just kind of easing back in because we weren't together last week. Today, though, we are going to do a little bit of watercoloring. So I see people popping in. Hello, everyone. Oh, so many people popping in. Hello, hello. It's great to see everyone. Welcome to Craft Your Joy. I'm Lisa Hetrick. Let's get going. Let's get started. We are going to do a bit of watercoloring today and a bit of color mixing. I'm going to talk about mixing greens and mixing reds and oranges with yellows. So to paint our daffodil today. Today's project is going to be a bit of an abstract kind of card, and many of you who are popping in know me. I don't focus a lot on the anatomy of the card design. We do make a card, but I will be working on sharing some watercolor techniques and techniques along the way. Okay. All right. It's so great to see everybody popping in and saying hello and chatting with each other in the chat. So let's get started. I wanted to share, let's just go ahead to the down camera. So all of the supplies that I'm using today are listed down below in the description. So I won't be like going through all of them, but I'll talk about them as we start to use them. So here is the brand new stamp set with Gina K called Smile Today. And many of you, because I recognize names, have been following me for quite some time. This stamp set came out of the inspiration for a class that's in my classroom at craftyourjoy.com called Let's Paint a Moody Daffodil. Okay, so there's this class. This is the class that I taught in my classroom. It's a really inexpensive mini class, and I also have a coupon code down in my description if you're interested in that class. But that's where the inspiration for this stamp set came from. The iteration of paintings that I did for that class. And when I was teaching it, I was like, I really, really want to come up with a stamp set so that we can paper craft together with it. So that's what happened. And this stamp set was born. And we've got that daffodil and a bunch of different elements for the daffodil and this big honkin' diamond pattern that I absolutely love. It's got this like abstracty modern twist. We're going to use it today. So that's the stamp set that we're going to use. Here's the coordinating die set. I don't think I'm going to be using that coordinating die set. And here is the inspiration for what I'm going to make today, what we're going to create today. But we're going to do like a little bit of a hybrid. We're going to do a mix of a no line kind of watercoloring with this background and more of a washy watercolor effect. We'll see. That's what it sounds like in my head right now. So we'll see how it's actually going to come out. And I'm going to be focusing, we're going to get started. That's what Lisa honkin'. Big honkin' stamps. I'm going to get started first. Before we get started on the actual stamping and the coloring, I want to get started first on talking about mixing greens and oranges with just 3 colors. So over the last couple tutorials, I've been getting a lot of questions about beginner watercolors and like what brands to use. And one of my commitments to you all this year was to be sharing different brands and what they do and how they're different from each other, and also kind of focusing on mixing colors and having some fun with that. So today I'm going to take my face out for a bit. Today we're going to be doing a tutorial about mixing greens, and I have 3 colors here. I have a neon pink, I have a lemon yellow, and I have an ultramarine deep. Now, this particular brand that I'm using it came in this little 4-pack. So this came as well. And I've linked this down below in the description. And it came in this little 4-pack. This is from White Nights. In our last tutorial together, I used White Nights. But what I liked about this little 4-pack is that you got 4 different colors in this little clamshell case. So it gave you an opportunity to just kind of try a few colors and play with them to see if you like the brand. And it was pretty inexpensive. And I really, really like that. Now I have big sets of these colors, but what I wanted to share with you today is that you could use these 3 colors and really mix up a lot of colors that you would need for beginners, for beginning. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to mix up our greens, and we're going to mix up some oranges and orange yellows, orange reds, that we're going to end up using in the final painting together, the final card project. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we're going to do that. Got those 3 colors, bringing in some water here. I've got a bunch of paintbrushes here. I've been using these a lot. Been talking about these Princeton Heritage brushes a lot. They seem to be like my go-to lately that I keep going to, and I really enjoy working with them. So let's dive in. We're going to first talk about mixing our greens with ultramarine blue and lemon yellow. Now, friends, if you have any questions along the way, pop the word question or Q in the chat, and I'll answer them along the way. We're into the lesson portion of this tutorial, and today it's about mixing colors and using 3 colors for color mixing for the ultimate colors that we're going to end up using for our card project. So if along the way you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to totally nerd out about this brand and talk about the differences, like the differences that I see happening on the paper that make this brand a little bit different from other brands. Okay. All right. White Nights watercolors. It's kind of been the White Nights watercolor month. I got a feeling that I got a feeling that I want to mix up some colors here. So I'm going to get these nice and juicy so you can see that these colors, as soon as the water touches it, they really come to life. They activate very, very well, this particular brand. Most brands do. The only brand, here we go, I can feel the nerd out coming. The only brand that I've used consistently that I feel like needs a little extra water put on it before we get it super duper activated is probably the Winsor Newton Cotman. Sometimes it's just a little hard to kind of scrub it up and get it working. Okay, I've got lemon yellow here, and ooh, that looks so bright. That lemon yellow looks so, so bright. Now I want to talk about mixing some realistic greens, or just, greens that look really close to nature for this project. So my brush is wet, paper is dry. I'm using the paper that I absolutely love to use for paper crafting projects, and that's the Strathmore Ready Cut Watercolor. I'd love to know if you all have been using it and like it, or what's your favorite paper. This is my favorite for paper crafting projects. I know I say that every month, every week. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of this ultramarine so you can see. Now this is probably about a 2% milk consistency. Here's that lemon yellow. And that lemon yellow may be kind of showing up a little day glowy or neonish because of the lighting. So hopefully it isn't, but it's very possible that it is. I'm going to take some more yellow. I want to get a more of a whole milk consistency here. Get a little more milky. So a lot more pigment there. Get a little more of that ultramarine. Get some more of that. Okay, and get that consistency. Good morning. I see more people popping in. Hello, friends. It's great to see everyone. Okay, now we're going to mix up some greens, and I've got some variations of greens here. So first I'm going to start with a little bit of this ultramarine. I'm just kind of spreading that out a little bit. And I'm going to take some of the yellow and put that in there. And I kind of like the way that's looking. So let's take a peek. So we got a nice green. Kind of like that. Feel like I'm going to add a little more blue. I want a little bit more of a thicker consistency with these colors, so I'm going to add more blue here. Got kind of a turquoisey or dark midnighty Prussian blue. Come in here with some more yellow. I'm going to add more yellow right here, and I'm getting a little bit darker. Love that. Loving that. This is more of like the color that I want. So more yellow, a little bit less blue. If I go in here and I add even more yellow to that consistency that I've got, I'm going to get a lighter like yellow green. Oh, I love that. That's super juicy. Between these two colors, I'm loving that. Now, what I want to show is like when I did it here, you can see with this particular brand, this ultramarine granulates. So what I mean by granulation, and I've talked about that on this channel before many times, is that the pigments separate from each other. So they're separating, that ultramarine is separating from that yellow, and we get that granulation happening. Let's see, let's come in really tight and see if you can see that. See if it'll focus. Yeah, there we go. So you get that granulation happening right there in that color. And you can see it a little bit in that green color, but you can see here how the blue and the yellow just start to separate from each other. And you get those little tiny granule look. It's really, really nice. Really nice. Let's pop back out a little bit here. And I really like that effect when it dries. So these are some of my greens. Digging that. Loving the way those look. Now let's come in. Let's bring the neon pink in. So essentially these three colors are CMYK. You could use you could use a yellow ultramarine, and then this color could be more of a darker pink or a red or a quinacridone red to get what we're getting here. But this little 4-pack had this little neon pink color in it, which look at that. Which is, they call it neon pink, but it's really opera pink. Really opera pink. Love that. Okay, I see a question. I'm going to take a little bit of this yellow first before I answer that question. Take a little bit of this yellow, pop it into that neon pink, just a little bit right here on the side so that we can take a peek at that beautiful orange that we're getting. Look at that orange. That's more of like a pyrrole orange or a traditional kind of orange that we're seeing. And I'm going to grab a little bit of this, a little more yellow, pop it in, and just keep mixing to see what's the next. Get a little bit of a lighter value of that orange, lighter hue. Look at that. Love that. So these colors and this orange are just going to be perfect for what we're going to do. I'm going to put this little bit of yellow down here. This combination of colors right here and this combination of colors right here are going to be perfect for what we're doing with the daffodil. Okay, got a question. Oh, okay. You know what? I should put my glasses on. That's a great question. I'm going to pop this up. Okay. Mama W65. Newbie here, so pardon my question. It's a crazy one. It's not a crazy one. No questions are crazy. Why did you grab the yellow from the paint cube instead of off of your board? Good question. No particular reason. I just picked it up because I really wanted to dig my brush in and get a lot more pigment than what was here. This was more of a 2% milk, had a little bit more water in it, and I wanted to get some more paint. So no particular reason. Now watch, I'm going to take a little bit of this neon pink and add it to the yellow that I have on the board here. And then I'm going to be able to get that like orangey red. But you see that this little pool of paint that I had here has a little bit more water in it, more along the lines of that 2% milk. And I really wanted to get more of a solid to show you the saturation of the color. So no particular reason. You can do it either way. Let's go ahead and pop that question off. You could do it either way. You can take your brush right to the pan, or you can use your palette. Either way. But I was just playing around with the different consistencies, and that's why I went to the palette. Okay. All right, friends, we've got our colors and kind of have a little makeup of our colors. Now let's get to the making of the card project. makes sense. Mama said, makes sense. Love the comparison to milk. Yes. So I talk about the, I'm getting ready to wash all this paint off here. I talk about consistency of paint and water in terms of skim milk, whole milk, and 2% milk. And we've talked about that. And I think we did talk about that last week when we were, or the week before when we were together doing our pause and paint. Okay, I've got another piece of watercolor paper, and I also have my big honkin' background stamp. Now, what I'm going to do first, and actually I need to bring some water over, so let me grab that. Oh, look at that. I had some schmutz on my finger, and that went right on there. That's okay. Just gonna kind of pat that out, or just flip it this way, because we're really just going to be using this space. All right, I am going to lightly mist my paper. I don't want it super saturated, but I'm going to lightly mist my paper. Take a little bit of the wild dandelion, and I'm going to ink up this big honkin' diamond pattern for our background, and we're going to layer our daffodil over it. So I'm going to turn this sideways, just kind of go in and eyeball it. And I'm not putting a ton of pressure on here. If you want to use your Misty, you can, but I really don't want it to be like super saturated. So I'm just putting a little tiny bit of pressure. And then I'm going to also just kind of hit that again with a little bit of water and let it do its thing. So the Gina K inks, I've used them many, many times. They will reactivate a little bit with water. You can move that color around a little bit. So watch, I can come in and kind of move some of those wild dandelion around and just kind of paint in some of those dots a little bit, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it be. Okay. Now, here's where it's going to get a little bit tricky, because in my head, I think this is going to work, but I'm not sure, and we're doing this live. So the card sample looks like this, and I did a masking. Like, I masked over this, and I was very careful about being inside the lines and all that stuff when I was painting. But this time, I'm doing something a little bit different. I don't want to mask this off. I actually want to stamp this down in wild dandelion, and then I just want to start painting it. And then I want to create that washy look, but I want to be able to see some of the diamond pattern layer coming through right in these spaces here where the mask was covering it. So let's see what happens, right? Let's see what happens. Ultimately, we're trying to do something like this, but let's see what happens. All right, I've got my daffodil. So the reason I've been sharing like projects like these, watercolor projects like these, with our stamps is because I kind of want to share like all the different options that you have with your stamps and how you can like create cards, of course, but you can create these little paintings that you can frame. Just some other options. So when I'm designing stamps for Gina, I'm always thinking about the different things that you can do with your stamps other than making cards. I love making cards because it feels like such a little tiny piece of artwork that you create. I'm going to turn this sideways, and then I'm just going to stamp this. You can see how I'm stamping this right into the pattern. So some of that pattern is going to show up inside of those petals. But in my head, it's going to be okay because we're going to be painting over it. So let's see what happens, right? And we're kind of keeping it super watery, super washy. Now, I used wild dandelion, and you can see all of the lines. And it feels a little concerning, I know, right now, because we can see the pattern coming through the petals of the daffodil. But no worries, no worries. I think it's going to be just fine. Okay, we're going to start by painting in our green leafery. Then we're going to come back in and paint our leaves for the daffodils. So let's go ahead. I got to get my glasses off here and mix up some greens. So I'm going to start. Wait, my paint water looks kind of yucky. Let's just we're going to mist this, get this nice and juicy. I'm going to take a big pile of the ultramarine, get a nice, now it's super watery. I really want it to be more like a whole milk. So I'm skewing right now between a whole milk and a 2%, but you can see there's a lot of pigment there. And I'm mixing my colors up first instead of mixing them as I go. Look, I got a little bit of blue in there. That's all right, we're going to use it. I'm going to grab some of that yellow, pop it in. I'm leaving a little bit of that blue over on the edge there, and I'll show you why in a bit. And mix up that first bit of green. Now, let's test it. See how I feel about it. It's a little light. So I'm going to come in and get a little more blue and add a little more blue to it. Let's add just a smidge more blue. So see how you can go back and forth, and I get it a little bit darker. And the reason why I want to get it a little bit darker is because watercolor fades. It ultimately fades back, and we end up adding a couple layers. Okay, my brush is clean. My paper is dry. I'm going to start with this outer petal, and I'm going to come in with a clean brush and just paint with water. And you can see that that wild dandelion is starting to come up. Now there's a piece of leafery right here. One of the good things about having the stamp set close by is that you can look at the different elements. You can see right here, there's a piece of leafery right here. So I'm focusing on this one right here. Sue just said that she was thinking it would be a little more yellow. Yes, isn't that fun though? When you start to play with the colors. Now you can see that some of this wild dandelion from the ink is already just kind of mixing up with the water. And that's okay. We're going to use our watercolor and our pigment, our dye ink, and we're going to use them together. And I'm just going to drop this color in, just kind of coax it. One of the things about the White Nights colors, I'm cleaning off my brush here, because I'm going to coax this color down and around. One of the things about the White Nights watercolor is that it doesn't whoosh. It doesn't whoosh in the water as much as other. You can see it kind of traveling a little bit, but I am coaxing it, trying to get it to go where I want it to go, and letting it mix with that yellow. So Sue, it's mixing, this darker green is mixing with that yellow that I have here from the wild dandelion, and it's giving me more of a yellow green, which is kind of the desired effect that I was going for. So I'm just kind of coaxing this around. There's a little smidge right there. So you see we've got that little open piece. Just kind of coaxing it. You can see some of the colors because ultramarine blue is a granulating color. You can see it start to granulate a little bit. And I'm going to clean off my brush. I'm going to take a little bit more of that ultramarine. And I'm going to drop a little bit at the tip and a little bit down here. Just add a little tiny smidge of blue in there and let it do its thing. Okay. I don't really like that, so let's play around with this a little bit. Just kind of let that kind of be. All right, now I might go to a thinner brush. I'm going to come back down to a number 6 because I'm going to start to work on this petal, and this petal. And I'm going to take a little bit more blue and mix that into that green. I'm starting to run out of pigment already. So you see I'm just going back and forth and adding. And now this time, this was wet into wet. This time, uh-oh, we might have a little visitor. We've got a little kitty cat. His name is Dash. And he, he's new to our house and he's just decided to run across. Here he is. Say hi, Dashy. He just decided to run across my desk. He's my daughter's little kitty. We've only had him for a month. He's just adorable. Okay. Now I've added some blue granulating. So Mama just asked about granulating colors. So granulating colors are when the pigments separate. So you can see in this sample we've got some blue and yellow, but you can see that the blue pigment is separating a little bit from the yellow, and it gives you that granulated look, like little dot pattern. They separate from each other, and it gives you a little bit of extra texture and dimension. The one that, here's another sample right there. You can see how that blue is separated from the yellow mix that got mixed together with it, and it creates granulating colors, which is kind of moody. It's kind of moody. I'm mixing up some more greens here because I need more. So I'm going back and forth with adding blue, which that's really gotten like super blue, super indigo-ish. Let's add some yellow. So I would encourage you to just get out like your watercolor set and start with 2 colors. Start with your blue and start with your yellow and play around with mixing up some greens. And this is what I suggest when you're getting to know your watercolors, because you can really just kind of see what you have in your kit and you can start to play with them and see what kind of colors you can mix up. Now I'm going to do this petal right here and this petal and this piece of leafery, and I'm going to do wet into dry. So the paper's dry and the brush is wet. Rose just said a crafty kitty. He's a little stinker. He's mischievous and he gets into a lot of things. He's like a little toddler. He's super cute. Okay, and I'm just mixing, just dropping that color in. You can see at full strength. So I've got kind of like this milky look to it. But I'm loving how, see how my diamond pattern just in all the places where I've been painting has just kind of disappeared. Love that. All right, now this one, brush is wet, paper's dry, picking up quite a bit of pigment, and I'm going to this petal right here, has like full on diamond pattern. Look at that. And I'm just going to go right over it and use my brush and just do a nice little stroke. And some of that diamond pattern, because of the transparency in the watercolor and the transparency in the wild dandelion, you can see it coming through the leafery a little bit. And oh, it's juicy. I love that. I just nerded out a little bit. That was exciting. Question. Oh, Rose has a really great question. Let's pop that up for everyone to see. What is your opinion of Ecoline watercolors? Pop my face in. Okay, so Ecoline watercolors, Dr. P.H. Martin's Radiant watercolors, all of those liquid watercolors are beautiful and juicy, and Ecoline is dye-based, so it's super hyper vibrant and really amazing to work with your paper crafting projects. It will, if you have that particular project, like if you were doing a painting and it was exposed by the sun over time, it'll fade because it's a dye and not a pigment. Now, Dr. P.H. Martin's has liquid watercolors that are pigment, and you can see the little pigments at the bottom. But Radiant watercolors and Ecoline watercolors and most of those kinds of liquid watercolors that you'll see like in our paper crafting world are dye-based. Beautiful, beautiful, fun colors to work with. I absolutely love them. I just don't find myself reaching for them so much, and now you've kind of inspired me to get them out because I do have them. Okay. All right, let's go in, and we've got this petal right here that we're going to work with. And I'm going to pick up some colors, and again, I'm doing wet into dry. My paper's dry, my brush is wet, and this is a more controlled, like, painting way to get my color in. So there we go. I've got that. Kind of digging the way these look. Now, love it. You're welcome, Rose. Hi, Wendy. Wendy just popped in. Says she needs coffee. I feel you. I feel it. I feel it. Okay, I'm good with the greens. Now, before we start doing our petals in our daffodils, I want to get a little bit washy. This could come back to bite me. We'll see what happens. You can see, before I start to go in with some detail here, I want to get some washy colors, just washy watercolor effects on the outer edge here. I really do love the way this came out. Love it. Could just cut it, make it into a card, but I want to go for something that is a little bit more washy around the outer edges. So we're going to give it a go. See what happens. Okay. So I'm just, my clean brush, I got a bigger brush here, and I'm just going to start to get this a little bit wet around the edges and let that wild dandelion that's already there just kind of bleed out a little bit. Now I'm trying to be really careful because I don't want to wash away the edges of my lines too much, because then I won't be able to see them when I go into paint. But that's okay. If that happens, I've got an alternative to share how we're going to work around that. And I'm just getting this nice and wet and letting the pigment ink that's here, not the pigment, the dye ink that's here, and a little bit of the watercolor, just kind of run out a little bit, run out to the edges before I drop in a little bit. Wendy said, yes, let's go for the washy. I'm going to take a little bit of lemon yellow and just drop it in my washy spots. And then just kind of coax it around a little bit. And let it be. I'm going to let that little bit of green, see how that's washing out. Oh, I'm loving it. Flip this around a little bit. I need to make some room here. Make sure we don't go out off camera so everyone can kind of see what's going on. Letting this go super washy. I'm going to come around this side and kind of go a little bit washy around these edges and just let some of that wild dandelion move. Coming in here, letting some of it move. And I'm just dancing my brush around. It's just a little bit wet. I'm still retaining the shape of the diamonds, but just letting it dance around a little bit and letting it be a little bit wet. Now I'm going to pull away some of that color. So see how I'm lifting some of that up and away? Because I didn't want that to be super dark. Okay. Now this could feel scary. So I would love, this could feel scary when you first try it. But trust me, give it a go. We're going to let that be washy. I'm going to come in and dry it. So now we're going to move on to our petals. And I really want this to be dry because I don't want my petals to start to bleed out too much. I'm going to make them bleed, but I don't want them to bleed too much. Ooh, I'm loving that. Loving how washy that got. I really would like it to be a little more washy, but let's see how it goes. Okay, now we're going to start in, you know what, I've got one more petal here. I forgot to do this little petal right here. So let's turn this a little bit this way. I'm going to do, we've got a little kitty cat that's trying to come in again. I'm going to mute real quick. Okay, I had to mute real quick so that I could grab him. Let's. My daughter's popping in to get him.
So sorry.
No worries.
So sorry.
He's just adorable. Everybody loves him. Oh, I have two pieces of leafery that I missed. I missed this piece right here. This little petal, this little stem. So let's go in right here. That was my daughter. Her name is Sydney. She's one of the guests that I'm going to bring on the show. Craft Your Joy, the show. I'm talking about this like it's some kind of high production here, but no, I'm going to bring her on, and I'm going to do a little bit right here where I kind of missed, and then I'll just kind of fix that later. Okay, now let's move on to my yellows. So for now, I'm going to kind of tidy this up a little bit because I want to stay in frame here as we start to work on the yellows. Okay, how old is your daughter? Sue just asked me. She is 20. My daughter is 20 and my son is 23. He just had a birthday on Tuesday. So very exciting. I love my babies. Okay, now we're going to go in and we're going to start with the petals. I'm going to start up here, and you can see we have that diamond pattern that's showing up in the petals, but it's going to disappear. So I'm going to start with every other petal with this wet into wet painting. Wet into wet. So that wild dandelion that's in the pattern, I'm actually using it to paint with. I'm going to add a little bit more lemon yellow to the outer edge here. Clean off my brush. So I'm going back and forth with cleaning off my brush and having the largest saturation of color on the outer edge of the petals. And then, so it's darker here and it moves into light. Oh, Sue, that's so sweet. You look too young to have children that age. That's so sweet. Well, I had my babies a little bit later in life. I was in my 30s. I was 32 and 36. I need a little bit of this when I had them. So they keep me young. They keep me young. All right, I put a little bit of that neon yellow down here because I'm going to do some mixing of a little bit of that orange. Oh gosh, that orange is juicy. And just drop a little bit of that orange right there at the top of the petal. Clean off my brush. Just kind of coax that around, let that do its thing. And we'll see if I'm going to end up feathering it out. I may end up feathering it out a little bit more. All right, moving to the next petal. So I'm going to just kind of flip this around a little bit and move to the petal over here. Use the color that's there. You can see that that diamond-shaped wild dandelion color is picking up. So I'm essentially watercoloring with the colors that are on here. And just adding a little bit extra. A little bit of lemon yellow. This is a little bit much, so I'm just going to lift this up a little bit. And then I got a question here from Sonia. When you clean off your brush, are you wiping the water off? Oh, good question. Yeah, I'm wiping my water off. So I'm cleaning off my brush, and I've got a little paper towel here, and I'm just kind of rolling my brush to get the excess water off. So yes. Another question. Sue just asked, does your daughter like to craft? Yes, she does. So my daughter grew up in, this studio space with me because I am a freelance illustrator and graphic designer, and I've been doing this for a long time. So they were, both of my kitties were, let's see, my son was 3 and my daughter was 1 when I went freelance. So they grew up in here with me. They grew up and has seen every little evolution of how this office space has, you know, kind of evolved. And so have been a big part of different projects that I have created over the years. So kind of fun. Super, super fun. So like, I'm moving to the next petal. So I have never really like told them, no, you can't touch this. So because I didn't do that, like a lot of my supplies, things like that weren't a big deal to them because I just taught them how to use them. I'm going to take a little bit of this orange and drop it in here, a little bit here, and let's put a little bit like along the line here. And everything is wet, and I'm just dropping that color in and just kind of letting it do its thing. And when it dries, it kind of looks a little bit like a little bit of a hot mess right now. But when it dries, we'll glaze and we'll add a little bit more. But we're starting to see our petal shapes. I kind of wanted to put a little bit here, so that we can see some definition in our petal shapes. Kind of digging that. All right, so here's the bell part of our flower and then the outer part. So the inside gets a little tricky sometimes with bell flowers because they have that shape, right? They have that shape that comes up like this. So we've got the outer edge, which is this piece right here. And then you've got that illusion of the inside of the flower, and then you're seeing the front of the flower. So we're going to work on applying color so that we can make that work like that. So you just shared, when my son was young, he liked to make his own comics. I wish I saved them. Now he's in his 30s and draws with his 4-year-old son. That's so cool. That's so cool. All right, I'm going to clean off my brush. Super, super clean. I'm going to just work on this outer edge of the bellflower. And then I'm actually not even using any of my lemon yellow. I'm just using some of that wild dandelion that's already there. I'm going to take a little tiny bit of that neon yellow, neon pink, and paint in that little heart that I've built into the flower. So it's kind of giving me a sense of where I am, a sense of place. I'm going to come around the bottom of this bellflower, this bell portion of the daffodil. Just kind of hug that bottom with a little bit of the orange that I mixed up, clean off my brush, and then use the clean brush to kind of feather out the color towards the top. So far my idea is coming to life pretty well. Just kind of feathering out that color, because what we're going to end up with is the illusion, like not a precise like more abstract, a little bit more washy, but we can tell where our petals are, and we use that stamp image to make it happen. So I'm losing a little bit of my shape right here of the bellflower, like right here. So I want to come in just with the tip of my brush and just kind of bring that back in just a little bit. Just the tip of my brush and a little bit of that orange. Just kind of bringing that back in. I might even kind of go around that shape just a little so I can start to see that definition between the two. But you can see underneath, so those of you and myself who were a little bit concerned in the beginning when we stamped that background first without masking it, you can see that it's washing away because we actually used it we used the color, we used the wild dandelion to paint with. Kind of digging that. Now I'm just feathering some color out. Things are starting to dry. I've got the petal right here that we need to work on. Sonia just said, I'm learning you're using a large brush than I thought for those little places. Yes, so look, I could use a really small number 2, but what I love about this round, this is a number 6, is look at how sharp that point can come to. So I can really get into some tight spaces. And the reason why I'm using the bigger brush is because it holds more water. So it gives me more opportunity to paint and paint without having to keep going back and forth and getting more pigment. It takes a larger amount of pigment on the load. Oh, I'm digging this. All right, I'm going to leave this. I want to take just a little smidge right here just to get some definition between here and here. But I'm going to leave this. I'm going to move away from it, move to another petal because we're already starting to see its shape come through. Hey, Mindy. Mindy just popped in. We're painting a daffodil and we're learning how to mix colors, and we're doing all this fun washi painting. All right, we're going to move to this shape, and then we're going to move to this bellflower. Now, the daffodils, you can see what makes this illustration come to life is that you've got different 3D versions of it. We're seeing the back of the daffodil. We're seeing this more in front, kind of pointing towards us. Then we're seeing this one kind of pointing down, and we're getting more of that bell shape there, which is kind of interesting. And I like the idea of having those 3 views in this one illustration because it gives you some room, gives you lots of room to create the 3D looks. All right, this flower over here had none of the background. So it has none of the background showing up. So we're not going to be using any of that wild dandelion. I'm going to flip this around. We're going to do a little bit of wet into dry. So my brush is wet. I'm lifting up some lemon yellow. Just kind of getting that consistency over here of like whole milk consistency. And then I'm going to start with my petals and just kind of hug the outside of my petal one at a time. And you can see I just kind of filled in the space. Clean off my brush, kind of wipe it off a little bit. It's a little bit wet. And I'm going to use what's here, need a little wetter, and just kind of drop some water in here and let that watercolor move towards the top. So you can see I'm dancing my brush around a little bit. Instead of resisting the urge to do like long strokes, I'm just dancing my brush around so that we've got that color that's moving around. Now I'm going to come over to this brush, this leaf, petal, brush, leaf, petal. I'm going to come over to this petal, and I'm going to do a little bit of wet into wet. Just kind of show you. We did dry into dry, wet into dry. Now I'm doing wet into wet. So I'm dropping some color into that petal, and then I'm just going to come back with my watercolor and drop it into the wet areas. Now, if you are, working on a project like this and you feel like the petals are too small and the brush is too big, use a smaller brush, right? Use a smaller brush. Sue says, it looks so good when you do it. Thank you. That's very sweet of you. I hope everyone's kind of getting this. Today's lesson is going to run over an hour. It just is, because we're really into it today. I'm doing some wet into wet. I'm using a little bit of that color of that wild dandelion that's on that petal. Just kind of letting this do its thing. I'm going to continue with the wet into wet, and this wet is going to touch a little bit of the green. So I might end up getting a little swoosh of green. Now the intention today was to do a washi watercolor project, talk about different color mixing, and to also share how you can use that background stamp and the daffodil together without masking. And I've done a couple projects with it masking, and I absolutely love it, but I really wanted that pattern to show through right here and not mask it off. So I see everybody's chatting. Mindy just did this really amazing video with the postcard master layouts. You know what? It's master layouts 14. Just came out on Tuesday night. I could be wrong on the 14 part. She just did this amazing card video. So you're going to want to go over and check her out. Got all these petals. I'm going to take a little bit of that orange. Let's just drop a little on the tips in some of these wet areas. See what happens. Let's just see what happens. Ooh, that was a lot. Now, when you're doing this, it kind of looks, it might feel like a bit of a hot mess. Because it kind of is a hot mess until you kind of coax it around. I'm cleaning off, you see my hand going this way. I'm cleaning off my brush. Master Layouts 15, Mindy. Look at me, I'm like one behind. The new Master Layouts 15 that just came out. The new postcards. You can make a postcard. It's like a postage stamp die. It's super cute. Super cute. I know I'll be getting it soon. I love those dies that are like super functional like that. All right, I'm just kind of dancing my brush around a little bit and letting a little bit of that orange kind of mix. I lost a little bit of my yellow here. So I'm just going to mix that back in and let it dry. Super, super soft. Super soft. Now I'm going to go to the bell. Brush is wet, paper's dry. I'm going to come in with some orange on the bell part and just kind of follow that line around. Clean off my brush, get it nice and wet, and then use the pigment that's here. Ooh, that's a little too wet. And just kind of draw that up a little bit. Just see how I'm just not going with like super duper strokes here. I'm just dropping in color and I'm dancing my brush around, sort of like dabbing it a little bit. I want the illusion of that shape of the bellflower, the bell part, but I want it to mix really well with that yellow. I see everybody's chatting it up today. Mindy is amazing. So glad you could join us today, Mindy. Mindy's like incredibly card prolific. She must make like 50 jillion cards a week. She's always busy. And her projects just come out so... I'm stunned. She's the blending queen. I don't do a lot of like blending of inks on this channel. I have, but I don't do that much because I always feel like you should go to the teacher who's really good at the things. And she is really good at that. She's just amazing with her color combinations and how she can mix inks. Holy moly. She's a treat. So there are so many talented, amazing, super duper ultra creative people on YouTube. It blows me away. It blows me away. Here I like to focus on techniques and I like to focus on watercolor and kind of demystify watercolor for our paper crafters. Mindy says she's watching on the big monitor. So it's funny because Mindy and I have talked many, many times about tech and different things that we have in our office spaces, lights, monitors. So this big, I have a very, very large monitor that I look at while I'm teaching you. It's right here in front of me. And it's just really super big. And Mindy has it too. And it's incredibly useful for us to be able to teach you and kind of show different show things on a very large monitor so I can see it and make sure what I'm sharing with you, you can see it as well. It stays in frame. Okay, I'm digging the way this looks. I'm digging the way this looks. I'm loving the softness of it. I think I'm going to want to do a little more washy over here. But right now we're going to move to this petal, this back of the like back and droopy part of this daffodil. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals. They may end up just kind of disappearing. So let's see what happens. I'm gonna go in. What I really, Mindy says it's huge. What I really like about it is that it's really large, but also I don't have to wear my glasses to see anything. All right, these petals, I'm going to have to do quite a bit of definition with them because you can see that that diamond-shaped pattern is behind it. And as I'm getting this wet, I'm getting that wild dandelion color. I'm activating that wild dandelion to get and it's kind of coming into the petals. So it's washing those petals away a little bit, but I'm not concerned. We're going to come in with a little bit of this orange that we mixed up. And I'm going to come around the bottom here. Come around like here. I'm going to come around the top here. So I'm just following my lines a little bit. And I'm going to use this orange and kind of feather it out so that I can get that definition in the petals. Just using what's here and dropping it in. Thank you, Mindy. She says, love watching you watercolor. Mindy, so we came in, everybody has kind of heard me say this. We came in today with, I've had this idea, wasn't sure if it was really going to work out, but we were going for it. All right, I've got this petal right here, and then I have a little petal that's over here. So I'm going to just grab a little bit on the tip of my brush. And it's probably going to get lost a little bit, but maybe not, because of that diamond pattern. So I'm able to recover it. Cleaned off my brush. Going to drop in a little bit of this yellow to just kind of feather out some of this orange a little bit. And essentially, friends, you can see me, I'm just dropping in the watercolor and letting it do its thing, letting it blend and mesh and play with its yellow friend so that we get that definition. I'm kind of digging the way this looks. I really think I want to leave it. I'm loving the way this came out. So these are really, really soft colors. I could go in and continue to add more and get, let's bring in this sample. I could really continue to go in and add more colors and glaze over it a little bit more and jack up that luminosity. But I'm really kind of going for this no line watercoloring, a little bit more washy, and a little softer. So this is it. This is how I know that I'm going to stop. Now, what I'm going to do is just take my little brush, just kind of taking my clean, wet brush, and I'm going around some of these areas because I want this to be a little washier. So I'm going to get this wet, and I'm going to drop some color in. Let some of these petals kind of fade out a little bit. I want it to be more washy. Ooh, that's messy. But look, I can just take my brush, dance it around a little bit, and let it be super washy. And my wet brush is touching the petals. That's okay. I'm going to let that wash out. I'll let some of this wash out right here. Digging it. I'm loving this. Okay. Let's go ahead. We're going to let it go. One of the big questions I get with watercoloring is or paper crafting in general. How do you know you're done? Well, sometimes you don't, and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going. But what I was trying to achieve here is that look and feel of that washy watercolor. My petals to have shape, and we've got 3D dimension and shape here with just a little bit of watercolor just to give them that washy effect. And I've got this background that's showing through, and it's just a little petally. Love it. Okay, now I am going to dry this. We're going to dry this, and then we're going to assemble our card. Okay, let's see what kind of questions we got. Everybody's saying hello, talking in the chat. Let's just get this nice and dry and see how we feel about it. See if we need to add more color. I see one thing right now that I need to fix. You see that big hole right there? Yeah, don't love that. Let's fix that. Okay. Okay, super dry. Ooh, Sue just shared I got another set of woodless watercolor pencils from another company just the other day, so I need to play. Yes, you do. Okay, we are going to head over to the die cut, the table cam. Let's go over there, and I'll turn that microphone on. We're going to cut this out and prep it for my card base. Okay, so let's go over there. It's a little bit dark over there, friends. So that's okay. It's a little bit dark over here because I'm still working on all things techie over here. I've got my intercut. Oh, look what's sitting here. We did this painting on our last video together, Pause and Paint. So that's still sitting here. All right, I am going to cut this out with the Master Layouts die. This is Master Layouts. I don't know. I have it linked down in the description. I want to say 6. I could be wrong. The numbers I'm always off. Okay, I'm going to just kind of line this up. I want to keep, I kind of just like the way, just kind of like having it centered here. I might pop this up a little bit higher so that that stem, let's see if everybody can see it. The stem is just going to go down and off the bottom of the card. And I'm retaining kind of that washy look up here. All right, let's just go ahead and cut this and see what it looks like. Let's make sure it's sort of straight. Listen to me. Let's make sure it's sort of straight. Right? Okay. Let's make sure it's sort of straight. Run this through my die cutter. I need to clean this. I've got so much dirt on this. So much paint. I have a tendency not to clean my things. I just use them. Okay. Ooh, digging it. Loving how the petals are going off. I mean, how the stems are going off. We've got a little bit of that bloom going off the edge there. And we've got all of that diamond pattern showing up. Ah! Okay, let's head back to the table. Hopefully that wasn't even, hopefully that was hopefully that was in frame. All right, I'm digging this. I'm digging the way this looks. Haha. There we go. Master Layouts 4. I do. I had Master Layouts 4 listed, which means it was Master Layouts 4. It's funny, when you go to do the lives, you try to remember all the things and what they're called, and you put them in the description, and then you go to do the lives and you instantly like forget what you said, right? You instantly forget, but that's okay. All right, we're going to, this is going to be a no sentiment, maybe. I think I'm going to maybe not do a sentiment on this. I'm loving the way this looks. Very super washy, watercolory. The mixture of the oranges that we mixed up, we mixed those colors up, and look at those greens, and everything looks so abstract, but you get, the petals have definition, and you definitely get that illusion of the 3D look without the height. That's what I love about stamps. Oh, all right, let's add some, ooh, we got a little glue. Let's add some glue. I got Gina K Connect glue here on the back. I like to use wet glues, especially on watercolor paper. I have a piece of Whisper cardstock. It's becoming my new like go-to neutral, and I really love it. because it is a neutral, and with yellows and greens, this Whisper really just kind of frames those colors, because the Whisper color is so, because the gray is so cool and you've got all these warm colors happening, it just kind of makes it pop a little bit. Oh, I'm really loving the way this looks. Super simple. Let's go ahead in. We're going to add a little bit of disco ball sequins. And just add a few of those. And I think I'm going to have them kind of trail up and off. Who knows? Let's see. Let's just drop a few little bloops. And let's just put one in. Maybe one over there. And be kind of random with it. Let's take my little picker and pop them in. Loving the way that looks. Oh, I think this card might be my favorite out of all the cards that I shared this week, because the release happened on Tuesday. And I just want to remind everyone, you don't forget to grab your free card idea sheet for this new stamp set. Here's the free card idea sheet. If you're in the Gina K Designs group, you can grab it there. Or you can go to my website at indigojadeart.com and grab it for free in the freebies and the free downloads. All right, I'm loving this, loving this. Let's pull in the original inspiration. So here was the original inspiration, and on Tuesday's video that I released, I said this card was my favorite. I think I said this card. Yeah, I did. I said this card was my favorite. So you could easily do this card and use your Obsidian ink, right? If you wanted to have the lines. But we did it today as more of a no line kind of effect. But let's talk about this. No line watercoloring, similar to what we did here, but this one is the petals are a little bit more washy. We've lost like some of that definition. I'm really digging it. Two very different styles, same kind of concept, super washy. Got our background here, a little bit more of a no line watercoloring here, not washy at all. Love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. All right, real quick, the stamp set is Smile Today. It is listed down below in the description. Here's the final card. Loving it. Absolutely loving it. Absolutely loving the way it came out. Whew. Okay, friends, it's been a week, right? It's been a week and it's only Thursday. So I hope you got a lot out of today's tutorial. We focused a little bit on White Nights watercolors, stamping and creating this washy watercolor card with the Daffodil from my Smile Today stamp set with Gina K. We also focused on a lesson on mixing up colors, and I only took 3 watercolors and I was able to mix up all the colors that I needed and used today to paint the daffodils and the petals and leaves. And we also used the Wild Dandelion ink from stamping and kind of mixed and mashed them up together. Okay. Everybody's saying that they love the cards. Mindy, Master Layouts 2 is my go-to. It is mine too. I seem to use it all the time. Rose shared, the bundle is sold out. So yeah, the bundle for the stamp and die bundle, let me just go back to this. The stamp and die bundle where they come together has sold out, but I know that they were reordered like immediately. So if that's what you're interested in, make sure you get on the wait list at GinaKDesigns.com for this. And when it comes back in, they're going to notify you like right away, and you can get first dibs at purchasing it. So, okay, friends, we did run over quite a bit this week. I'll be back next week on Thursday for another tutorial using Smile Today, and I'm going to mash it up with something else in the collection, and we're going to do just kind of a little mix and mash up so I can show you how Smile Today coordinates and works with some other stamps in my collection. Okay, you also, even though the bundle did sell out, you can still get the stamp set. That hasn't sold out. So something new that Gina's trying out with selling the stamps and the dies together. It's kind of cool. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you got a ton of value out of today's video. I would love it if you'd like and subscribe. Apparently that all means something here on YouTube, and that's amazing. I just am blown away and so grateful that you all join me every week. And I hope that you're getting the same kind of value back in the lessons that I'm teaching. So, okay, all of the links are down below in the description. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I can't wait to see what you create with this stamp set. I'm super excited about it. I know every month I say this one might be my favorite, but every single month when we release a new set, it's like my favorite. It's like, and I can't wait to share more with you. If you're interested in joining my email list, the link is down below in the description. Also, the link is down below in the description to join my free community in my online classroom at craftyourjoy.com. And there's also a coupon code down in the description for the Daffodil class that I have. So, okay, friends, I'm seeing everybody chatting with each other in the chat. So, okay, friends, I am going to sign off and send you into the weekend to craft your joy. Tomorrow is Friday. I'm just looking at everybody's comments. So, so sweet. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. I'll see you next week, friends. Okay, bye now.